All right, excuse the technical difficulty delay, but we will call the meeting to order. Please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, tonight's points of pride.
So I'm going to welcome up to the table staff from Temple that I'll ask you each to introduce yourselves. Just make sure that you press the button and you need to talk right into the microphone or it's hard to hear.
Hi there, I'm Tina Peralt, and I teach kindergarten and first grade.
Hi, I am Kelly Bruns, and I teach second, third, and fourth grade.
Hello, I'm Kimberly Sell, and I'm the administrative assistant.
Next slide, yeah. So first I'm going to talk about K1 science, and we do science inside, outside. The students this fall have been learning about observation skills. They're learning to do detailed drawings of things in nature. They're learning to do writing and labeling. They're noticing patterns in nature, asking and answering questions, using tools like magnifying lenses, rulers, measuring tapes. They learn to follow rules. We have boundaries in our areas out in the woods where we're looking at nature. Following directions for science experiments or science observations, and math skills of the measuring and counting, finding things in nature. They love finding salamanders and worms and bugs and flipping over rocks, and so that's science for us. Yeah, next page, please. Thanks. We've been working on learning about United States symbols, and so they do listening comprehension with stories that I read aloud or from videos. Also, they work on their speaking skills where they're learning the facts and then talking about them to each other, helping me to write them down on a web. Fine motor skills, they did a lot of work on making their flags and their eagles, following directions, identifying symbols, why we have the symbols, what they represent, the history, like how long ago they made them, geography, we pull down the maps and figure out where the Liberty Bell, where the Statue of Liberty are located. Next slide. We did a directed draw for the Statue of Liberty, so this is some of the Statue of Liberties that the students made, and then the Liberty Bell on the right, and it's just following step by step, and they add their little twist to it however they want to. So that's their learning for the U.S. symbols.
Hi, I'll be talking a little bit about the curriculum for second, third, and fourth grade. So one of our units that we do for writing is our Pen Pal unit. We have a class that we work with throughout the entire school year in Washington State. It's a third grade class. So during this unit, the students are learning to format a letter, writing conventions, communication skills, understanding different cultures. The school that they are communicating with have quite a few students with very different backgrounds from the students in Temple. The names are always very different than names that they're used to have interacted with before. They're also working on their handwriting skills. The third and fourth graders are working on their cursive, geography, map skills, and the authentic practice with an audience. So those are some of the benefits of the Pen Pal unit, which again lasts throughout the year, culminating at the end of the year with our class doing their New Hampshire research and mailing a letter explaining some facts about New Hampshire, and we then receive work from our pen pals teaching our students about Washington State. And you can advance the slide, thanks. Here are just some pictures of the unit. We have just a whole class picture on the first day that our pen pal letters arrived. Up in the right corner, you can just see when I was teaching the parts of a friendly letter to the second graders. It was new to them. The older kids have done the letters in the past. Map skills, and then just an example of the pen pal folder, which they keep throughout the year. They exchange pictures with their pen pal and get to really know their pen pal pretty well throughout the year. And we end the year with a Zoom session, so each child gets to Zoom with myself and that classroom teacher. And next slide, thanks. And we do have a short video of one of our students reading her letter. If we don't have sound, we don't have to. That's okay. Okay. Oh. Well, if you could hear Dottie, you would hear her answering lots of questions in response to her pen pal, and then asking her pen pal for some questions that she would like answered. And you'll see in the bottom right corner, we have some students looking at the map, finding our location on the map and where their pen pals live. They will also work on editing, self-editing and peer editing before they do their final draft. And you can go to the next slide. And just a quick slide, I'm piloting one of the language arts programs. So I'm piloting the EL program. So we are just finishing up the first unit of the module that we're working on right now. Some of the schools are piloting a CKLA program. My school, as well as a number of other schools in the district, are doing EL. Some of the benefits that we have found are the complex, authentic text. So rather than basal readers, we're looking at some pretty great actual books, which is nice for the kids to have. Deep context, the knowledge that they're getting is pretty incredible. And lots of collaborative work within this program, and tons of writing, lots of hands-on work through this program. So just thought you might be interested to see a little bit of this one program that is being piloted. And that's about it for 2, 3, 4.
Okay. At this point, I'm really wishing I had bulleted this and didn't type it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our Thanksgiving feast that we have every year. There's a lot of parts that go into making this happen, and the students, especially the fourth graders, are very much included in making sure that the feast is a success. So how does this connect to the students' education? They're learning skills of working together. They work in pairs to prepare apple crisp for the feast dessert. They take turns measuring all of the ingredients and mixing it together, and each pair makes their one complete pan of apple crisp. This feast also is giving them some good life skill practicing. I knew I was going to lose my place. So it's meaningful opportunities for students to learn and practice important life skills. One of the most significant tasks is setting the tables. The fourth grade students are responsible for ensuring that each place setting includes all the necessary components for the meal. And for some of the students, this is the first time that they realize that the fork goes on the left and the knife and spoon go on the right. They practice their communication skills. When the feast happens, the fourth graders greet everyone at the door. They engage in some conversation. They lead them to the table and help them find a seat. And then throughout the meal, they talk with them. They see what their needs are, and they make sure that their needs are being met throughout the meal. The performing arts, all of the students perform for the seniors of Temple. And this year, if you look in the upper left, you see we actually had a few little turkeys that were there to perform for our seniors of Temple. And I think that this is one of the most cherished parts of the feast. They all say how much they love the kids singing during the day. The Senior Thanksgiving Feast helps us address social studies state standards, including civic participation and real-world application. Through this experience, we hope we're building informed community members and responsible citizens. So this is something with the financial help of our town rec department that has been going on for over 50 years. The strong sense of community it fosters has made it a cherished and hopefully long-lasting staple for Temple.
Thank you. Any questions for Temple staff?
That pen pal idea sounds amazing. How long have you been doing that?
This is the 4th year.
And this is, have they mentioned the flooding at all that's going on in Washington? I know I don't know how frequently they write each other.
We haven't gotten a letter from them since October, so I don't think anyone mentioned anything about flooding. No, we haven't heard anything, but yeah, we'll get letters back from them probably in January.
And I just wanted to give a shout out to Tina because I believe you were the Harris Center Educator of the Year last year. So when you were talking about the finding of the salamanders and the nature part, I think you were just giving us the bare minimum of what's happening over there in your classroom.
Yes. Right. This year I'm K1, so I haven't done as much as I have in the past when I've been 1, 2, first and second grade. But yes, we spend a lot of time outside finding nature items, journaling, and just slowing down and just seeing what we can find, what we can learn. So I'm hoping that I'll get these students ready for that, but kindergarten's a little bit harder for me. But yeah, I plan on really getting us out there. Snowshoeing will start soon, so we'll be out for that, looking for tracks. So yeah, I just haven't gotten the energy yet to figure out, okay, how am I going to get all the kindergartners to get those snowshoes on? Second grade can help usually, so I might go, hey, Mrs. Bruns, can I borrow some students? So yeah, thank you, yes.
Do you have your cameras outside?
I do not yet. With the Harris Center taking workshops there, they had a grant, and so I applied for a mini grant. So I do have game cameras that we have used, cameras, regular cameras, and then I have measuring toolkits for all the students. So we have vernier calipers and measuring tapes, cloth measuring tapes, rulers, tweezers, magnifying lenses, and all of that I got through the grant. So the students will learn to use those, but this year we haven't used them yet. So, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And the high school also has something to share tonight.
All right, good evening. I have the pleasure to introduce Grace Schooneman, a junior at Conval High School. And Grace is in the German program. And what's really neat is Grace began German her freshman year, took German 1, I believe it was the fall semester. Sophomore year, took German 2, the semester, first semester, and then in the spring semester took German 3. Now this is her junior year in German 4 right now and hopes to take AP German next semester as a second semester junior. And I was fortunate, I believe it was last week, to be a judge for Spanish and German. They had a poetry recitation contest in their classrooms. So they could choose from various different poems to recite. And then there were 3 winners from each class that were invited today to the library for a larger poetry recitation contest, which Dr. Forrest and Amy got to come to. So thank you for that. And the students did a wonderful job. So Grace is actually here tonight. It takes a lot of courage to come in front of the board. So I told her that everyone's very friendly and has offered to recite her poem in German this evening. So Grace, you can share with everyone the name of the poem, because you'll be able to pronounce it much better than I can.
So the poem that I'm going to be doing tonight is called Die Lorelei von Heinrich Heine. Ich weiß nicht, was soll es bedeuten, dass ich so traurig bin. Ein Märchen aus roten Seiten, das kommt mir nicht aus dem Sinn. Die Luft ist kühl und düster kalt, der ruhig fließt der Rhein. Der Gipfel des Berges von kalten Abendsonnenschein. Die schönste Jungfrau sitzt dort oben wunderbar. Ihr goldenes Geschmeide blitzet, sie kämmt ihr goldenes Haar. Sie kämmt es mit goldenen Kammer und singt ein Lied dabei. Das hat eine wundersame, gewaltige Melodie. Den Schiffen, kleine Schiffe, ergreift es mit wilden Weh. Schaut nicht die Felsenriffe, schaut nur hinauf in die Höhe. Ich glaube, die Wellen verschlingen am Ende Schiffe und kann, und das haben wir ihrem Singen allerlei getan. Thank you.
All right, danke, Grace. So thank you so much. You can certainly stay up here. There's another quick point of pride I just want to share. Last year, you probably remember that our boys indoor track team were runner-up champions, and they kicked off an indoor track meet at Phillips Exeter Academy, and we had several student athletes place in the top 10. And Ross Stevens, one of our student athletes, actually he set a facility record at Phillips Exeter Academy. So he broke already his own state record. He improved upon that, and it was 35.37 seconds for the 300-meter dash. So that's just really noteworthy and impressive. He's very fast. Catch him if you can. And he also placed 3rd in the 55-meter dash. So again, we had several student athletes, and because I'm highlighting how the top male did, I also want to give a shout out to Whitney Adair. She was our top female finisher. I believe it was in the 600. So she finished 4th place. I know that in the 600. I think it was about in 1 minute and 51 seconds and change. So she did very well, and we had, again, multiple other student athletes place. So a very strong start to the season for them. So thank you. Thank you, Danke.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, approval of the manifest.
I certify that the manifest listed below, totaling $2,293,611.93, have been reviewed by me and found to be proper charges against Kentucky Valley School District for goods and/or services received and have been properly processed prior to their submittal to the school board.
I move that we approve the manifest.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Public comment. Do we have anyone for public comment tonight? I see no public, so I guess not. So. Just a update on a procedure before we go on to the reports. I I know, again, tonight, you got an email that said that please make sure that you bring your laptops with you because we would not be printing out our full board packets. And if there's no objection to that, we're going to make that a standard procedure because trying to have 80 pages prepared for you and probably not much happens with it after the meeting. So as long as, again, there's no great objection, we're going to make that a standard procedure. So please, from now on, bring the laptops.
Could I make one request? Occasionally we get documents that are horizontal and they're uploaded as vertical documents. And to my knowledge, we don't have a PDF viewer subscription. So on my home computer, I can open them in Acrobat, but on this laptop, I can't. So we end up looking at a large spreadsheet on its side. So I'd be very grateful if they were. Then you can't see the entire document. So thank you.
Facilities report, Tom?
Thank you. Just so everyone is aware what Facilities Committee is, we are creating long-term options for our high school, the CTE wing, and the 2 middle schools. We're going to be, and why are we doing this? Because these buildings are aging, and we want to figure out the best options forward. And there's more than one option, and we want to consider them all, bring them to the board, and then by the end of the year, and then decide probably at that point we want to then move to the public and see what the public thinks about some of the things we're facing and consider what's the best choice for the Conval community. We're going to coordinate our efforts with the Building and Property Committee since they're in charge of the maintenance schedule for the building, and there's just a lot of natural overlap with what they're doing and what we're attempting to do. We met on December 4th. We reviewed the Brenzinger architectural report on those 4 buildings in questions. We've done tours of the buildings. We are talked with Tim Grassi about the needs of the buildings. Long-term, the buildings are facing some serious needs. Short-term, he feels like the buildings can be managed in a reasonable way for the next few years to give us some breathing room to consider what our long-term plans are going to be. We're going to retour. We did tour the high school, the CTE, and the middle schools in January, in the last 6 weeks, and we're going to redo it in January when their schools are in action with the students there in order to gather more information for our recommendations.
Any questions for Tom? Communications, Curtis?
Thanks. The Communications Committee met on December 4th. That was a Thursday a few weeks back. We finished reviewing the communications plan and the corresponding timeline. My apologies for not having gotten this to the board packet earlier, but we did put it in the packet for January 6th, so we can review and approve it then. Next up, we had a short conversation. We picked up an earlier focus, which was discussing unifying the topography used throughout the Conval district. We're hoping that we can find some time to give that consistent thought over the second half of the year. And then the last portion of the meeting was spent starting to plan for the forum around the budget and the presentation of the warrant articles. But that'll likely occupy most of our attention in January.
You want to go on with the withdrawal?
Sure. So last Thursday, December 11th, The State Board of Education heard the withdrawal cases for both Temple and Francistown. The Temple case was rather brief. I presented just a brief statement of the committee's work and the unanimous outcome to not recommend, and there really wasn't anything for the State Board to do in terms of action to take on that. So that is now considered resolved. The hearing on Francistown was a little more in depth. I was there to speak on behalf of the majority, and I presented the committee's work, the conclusions of the committee, and I also presented some pretty extensive analysis on the minority report. Some of this included, some of their models had changed since the committee. There were some adjustments they made on their end to their budget as well as their staffing model. The SAU reviewed and costed their staffing model, and using very, very conservative assumptions. And lining that up with the budget, it looked to be at least $150,000 short or over what they were estimating. So we found a number of underestimated costs and unbudgeted items, and that continued on to special education costs, which were notably under-budgeted. There were about 2 pages worth of unbudgeted items that were not all small by any means. There were transportation fuel was absent from their estimations. Curriculum licensing was absent from their estimations. Any capital planning for future facilities needs, the parking lot, the floors, there was one more, the boiler, known expenses that we had told them about that were coming in the very near term that were not considered. This is, I went on to talk as well about financial sustainability in the district given the voting history, concerns regarding administrative and staffing feasibility. They're questioning their ability to hire. I also spoke about potential open enrollment risks, as there are a number of students in other district elementary schools right now, and there was no tuition budgeted for those students. So the State Board actually had a question for me regarding that one, and after the minority presented, it was made clear that those students who are currently Conval students would be forced in their model to attend Francistown. They would not be extended the option to stay in their current district. I'm attaching the testimony that I gave. It's in the record with the State Board. I emailed Brenda a copy, so it'll go on today's record as well. And we'll put it in the board packet for you to review. I would ask you to give extra attention to the SAU's work that they did. That's attachment A, and you can compare that for yourself with the minority report and the full committee's report, and really educate yourself, because the nuances matter here, and they will add up. The State Board also, some of the concerns I raised around open enrollment stemmed from a misunderstanding of how adequacy is ultimately applied under current open enrollment law, and I was grateful for their clarification. They basically informed me that adequacy does not follow the student. It doesn't leave the district, but it actually stays with the sending district. So in my the testimony that I submitted to the state, I noted that clarification, and I struck that paragraph because it's factually inaccurate from the copy that you'll get. Ultimately, the state board approved the withdrawal plan, so this will be coming back to district voters this year. So, any questions?
Any questions, either about the report or procedure that's going to follow? Yes, Carl?
So you mentioned a number of adjustments that you think ought to be made in their report. Will further adjustments be made before it comes to vote?
To whose report?
Their report, the minority report you referred to.
That'll be entirely up to them what they present to the public.
But they have an opportunity to change it. They're not committed to the one that the state approved.
No, they are not. I mean, they will have the opportunity. If withdrawal is approved, they'll have the opportunity to draft a new budget. And from here until then, they can respond. They did not address specifically any of the concerns that I brought forward during the hearing, and they were given an opportunity to.
Janine?
What is your estimate of the increase that will have to be shared by the rest of the district should they withdraw?
On our end, we didn't change any numbers, so it was still $1.7 million that would be the increase borne by the remaining towns.
Oops. I did watch the proceedings online, and I thought it was very interesting that there were 4 different communities that presented their withdrawal findings. And one of the towns, because they were filing so late, really had very little financial information. So there were a lot of questions for them. And the actual vote on all 4 of the towns was not that the withdrawal plans had been accepted. It was that they agreed to allow the towns to take their take things back and have a vote as usual. So it was to allow them to have a vote, not that their plans were being accepted. So, and as I said, one of the towns had almost no financial information because they had been so late in getting the withdrawal procedure going. So that was fairly interesting to see. All right, policy, Janine.
The policy committee met on 12/8/25. We briefly discussed policy DIA fund balance, which will not be brought forward for a second read tonight, but delayed until a later time. The committee reviewed a new policy, JF, Enrollment and Enrollment Capacity. This policy states the district's responsibilities to educate children. It defines full and part-time enrollment, and it directs the superintendent to prepare a report that estimates and describes the district's enrollment capacity according to a list of 10 categories. That report goes to the board no later than June 30th, and the board will finalize and approve this report, and it basically tells us what the capacity for the report is. The name of the report is Annual School Program, Class and Activities Enrollment Capacity. That will be up for a first read tonight. JFR 1 is a template that's attached to that policy that outlines the above categories that will direct the superintendent's data collection that will form the report. The committee reviewed policy EBBCA, use and location of automated external defibrillators. This policy replaces 3 policies we currently have, GB, GBA, KFD, and JLCEA, three identical policies for, that are going to be rescinded should we accept that. But it's not up for first read tonight. It is going to the school nurses first. But basically, there were some very minor changes. The board reviewed IHCD/LEB, advanced coursework and advanced placement courses in STEM, dual and concurrent enrollment program. We had to address the legislative change of the spring that students can only take 2 courses in this program per year with state funding. If they want to take more than those 2 courses, then they have to bear the cost themselves. I can't remember, what did we decide about LEB? Are we going to rescind that? That is also up for first read tonight. I guess it doesn't matter, we don't have to decide that now. We're gonna leave it? Okay. The committee reviewed policy GBE-BB, employee-student relations, with new language from the spring RSA to not allow staff to transport students to medical or mental health appointments, and to not allow staff to counsel or advise unless credentialed to do so. This policy is going to go back to school counselors and student support counselors for their review. Policy JLCJA, emergency plan for sports-related injuries and additional protocols for athletic participation, includes a few language changes and additions and 1 clarifying update. And that is coming for first read tonight. The committee reviewed the minutes from the non-public, 3 non-publics. The first 2 are, one is from December 20th, 2011, and then the next one is from January 10th, 2012, and they are both minutes.
This will be in our non-public, that part.
Oh, I don't tell them. Oh, okay.
Yes. Well, you tell them
Oh, okay.
in
sorry.
non-public. So we have some non-public minutes
Okay.
to.
We reviewed some non-public minutes. You'll find out about that later. Okay, and then we have 4 second read policies that are up tonight, and when we get to second read, I'll talk about those.
Education Committee, Bill?
Thank you, Mike. We met last night. We had planned to talk about the program of studies at the high school and graduation requirements, but we felt that we needed to table that until our next meeting and look at open enrollment. We had a very thorough discussion about it, and in the course of that discussion, we moved forward a sample warrant article that Ann will be bringing forward a little later tonight. And we also had an outstanding presentation by the German faculty department on German at the high school. Participating in that was Cindy Hodgen, Liz Concannon, and also Heather McKillop. And I was very impressed by what I learned. I knew we had a good program, but I didn't realize just how extensive it was, reaching out into other countries and other schools within the United States, and it was very impressive. So a little later in the meeting, Ann will be presenting what we debated and discussed at our meeting last night.
Any questions for Bill? Budget and property. Jim?
We talked about 4 things today. First one was the CTE in the high school renovation project, and we're going to be talking about that under Superintendent's report in a few minutes. We talked about the fiscal year 27 budget, and everything you're going to hear later when Neil presents it under old business was approved and recommended by the Budget Property Committee. Policy DIA, we talked about that one, and I would have said it's delayed indefinitely because we don't see any need to revise it at this point in time. The final thing we talked about was how do we coordinate with the Facilities Committee on what Tom talked about. And basically, you think of keeping the buildings warm, safe, and dry, and maybe some minor renovations, all that stuff would be used with current funding processes. That's either through budget or trust funds. Anything beyond that would be, if we do anything beyond that, they'll be under the Facilities Committee. There's a lot of people that sit on both committees, so just want to make sure you understood. There is a line of demarcation. It's a little bit of fuzzy, but there is a line of demarcation between the two committees, I should say. Thank you.
Okay, Curtis, meeting with the commissioner.
So last Friday, I was joined by 14 other school board chairs and vice chairs in a meeting with Commissioner Caitlin Davis at the Department of Education. It's a very good group of people in terms of the other school board members, and it was really wonderful to be able to kind of start to form a collaborative relationship with the Department of Education. Some board members opened by speaking about the importance of preserving local control. They spoke to our collective desire to keep school board positions nonpartisan. I spoke about the difficulty districts are having navigating open enrollment as it's coming to us on a number of fronts. It is, I voiced concerns in how difficult it is to budget for potential tuition and transportation obligations related to SB 99 and CTE open enrollment going into effect January 1st, which is mid-year, and also in the middle of our planning for a budget for next year, and we have no idea what the impact of CTE open enrollment is going to be. I spoke to the difficulty of districts across the state dealing with the Supreme Court decision that has us considering current open enrollment law and its effect on us. And then I spoke to a number of concerns related to last year's open enrollment legislation and how it could, how it's coming back, right? It's coming right back at us. And you know, those concerns were that there are administrative burdens in doing monthly capacity reporting. There's problems with how the state defined or didn't define capacity as being simply an open seat and not having, you know, not being the district's ability to meet the needs of a learner, any learner who fills that seat. And then there are the difficulties with a system that creates winners and losers and really affects districts who will have a net outflow of students and won't be able to reduce their costs because they lose 20 students but find themselves hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, owed out. It's a system that for some students may create an opportunity that didn't exist before, and some districts it may end up benefiting. But we as board members, I think, aren't in a position to consider the fallout as our focus is kind of aligned within our borders. It's our students and our taxpayers. And I just raised the concern that if the state abandons that level of responsibility for the outcome, that we're just in a tough spot to consider that. So if a choice is not available to all, it is really not choice. And I asked the commissioner to hold her department to a standard that supplies legislators with information that will get at the impacts of this, that will spell out to them what happens, what the potential fallout is. And the fiscal notes that were the responsibility of the department previously related to SB 99 and the statewide open enrollment laws, they didn't have any information from the Department of Ed, and they should. And I think the commissioner met that with a good bit of grace. I think she's very smart and data dependent, and she expressed her desire for the department to be very nonpartisan and to function at a high level. And I think that's something that I respected and was grateful to hear. Past the open enrollment discussion, other board members spoke to the difficulties around special education aid reimbursements, and I was really blown away by the stories of what other districts are losing, are cutting because they can't keep up with special education transportation cost increases, or thinking you're going to get X and then the state scales it back, and people are losing teachers, kids are losing opportunities. So in some sense a tough meeting, but it is really good to have had the opportunity to bring those stories forward and to have them fall on open ears. And the commissioner was gracious enough to invite us back in a couple months and to keep the dialogue going.
Yes, Carl?
You spoke highly of the people in the room. You seemed pleased with them. I don't understand exactly who they were. They obviously wasn't everybody. They self-selected people who decided to come to this meeting, or are they from a region, or why did this particular group of people come together?
That's a good question. Why they came together, or who are they? Which would you like first? So they are, I can get you the exact names if you'd like, but school board chairs and vice chairs from districts around the state of New Hampshire. The group in its entirety, I think, has over 50 individual members. The people who showed up were those who could make a Friday afternoon meeting work. We had
Well, and actually, the group has been put together by the group that came here and did the presentation for us. So they're not only communicating with the government, but they're meeting on a regular basis online to share any concerns that they might have that are happening within their district, to try to come up with some shared ideas. So they are meeting, as I said, online on a regular basis. So.
Curtis, I'd like to personally thank you for all the time you put into these meetings and get ready for them. It's amazing how much time you spend on this since you joined the board. It's an incredible amount of work you've taken on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, no other questions, then we'll call on Liam and Marcus.
This week into next week, we are having our Spirit Week for the end of December. Monday, we had Flannel Friday. Flannel Fun Day Monday. That was a misread. Tuesday, which is today, we have New Year, New Me, which is also Dress as Your Dream Job, as you can see Ms. McGill up in the back. And then on Wednesday, tomorrow, we have Winter Weather Wednesday, dress in winter clothes. On Thursday, we have Ugly Sweater Day, where you just dress in ugly sweaters. And if you do, there's a cookie cart going around by NHS, and you can get a cookie. On Friday, We have Football Friday, dress as a football player or something of the like. Next Monday, we have Whiteout. And then next Tuesday, we have Holiday Comfy Day. Dress in pajamas or something like that.
Tomorrow we have the holiday concert at 6:30, and I would like to formally invite all of you to come to it if you can. So that'll be a lot of fun. 6:30. If you want to go there, go. Last weekend there was the Early Bird Wrestling Tournament here at Conval. I'm not quite sure how the Conval athletes did because I'm not a wrestler, but I know I'm getting a thumbs up from Miss McKill up in the back, so I'm pretty sure they did pretty well. Also, last weekend was a track meet, but Marcus will tell you more about that.
Yes. Last weekend we had the track meet, as he said, and I was in that personally. It was mentioned that Ross got first place in 300 and set the school record, and he was third in the 55. We also had a great showing everywhere else. Just a lot of talent that I'm excited to see how it goes for the rest of this season.
This week, Conval Swimming has 2 meets. One of them started 56 minutes ago, so I was not able to be there. The other one is this Friday, so I'm going to go out there. I'm going to hopefully set a new school record, as me, myself, and I. Also this week, there have been plenty of basketball games the past 2 days. Girls and boys played. I don't believe they won, but they put a good effort into it. And there will be plenty more over the week, so I'm excited to see how they do. And also, yesterday, there were candy canes being sent out. I believe you could pay to have one be sent to someone that you're appreciative of, or that you just want to have a candy cane. I got one from Miss Rushford, so if she's watching the recording of this, thank you, Miss Rushford.
Okay, finally, over the last few weeks, the class of 2027 for student government has been hosting a door decorating contest, which many tasks have decorated their doors in contest with each other to get a free bagel meal breakfast, and that was a very special thing for our community, and it was really nice. Thank you. Oh, I'm not sure, sorry.
I don't think it's been announced
Yeah.
yet.
Okay, thank you very much. Consent agenda. We have a motion to accept the consent agenda, then we'll have discussion if there is any. Second? Okay. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Superintendent's report.
Okay, monthly events calendar. Tomorrow on the calendar, you'll see that the New Hampshire School Boards Association is having a webinar from 12 to 1:30, and it is focused on the 2026 New Hampshire Legislative Review. So just a reminder that you all have access to the New Hampshire School Board Association webinars. They're recorded, so you can see them. You see them live. You have the opportunity to ask questions, but they're also in a library that you can access at any time. On Thursday, Selectmen's Advisory Committee is meeting at 6 p.m. here at the SAU, and that is it for this week. Next week, we only have school on Monday and Tuesday, and we have nothing scheduled. And I think we should keep it that way.
Did you have a question?
Oh my gosh.
I was just going to add that you can call the New Hampshire School Board Association with questions, any question you might have, and they have answers. They're a wonderful resource.
In January, Tuesday, January 6th, we have a budget and property meeting. No, we're not. That. So that's on your calendar, but.
Yeah,
you will
just for everybody's information, we're going back to just one budget property committee a month, January, February, be none in March.
Okay, but on January 6th, we will have a public hearing on the proposed budget. That will be at 7 p.m. Here at the SAU, immediately followed by the school board meeting. And on Thursday, the 8th, a communications committee meeting is scheduled for 6 p.m. Anything else for the first week in January? Okay. On Monday, January 12th, we have an education committee meeting at 6 p.m. here at the SAU. And then Tuesday the 13th is the snow date for the public hearing on the proposed budget. And I believe that Brenda wanted me to check in with the board. It's scheduled for 7, but there's no other meeting that night. So if we had, yes? So if we didn't have the budget hearing on the 6th and it was going to happen on the 13th, there is the possibility of moving that up, if that would work for people. 6?
Have a thumbs up for 6 o'clock?
Okay.
Okay. The 13th, yeah.
Anything else for the week of January 12th? Okay, the week of the 19th, the district is closed on Monday the 19th, but on Tuesday the 20th, we have a budget, and we will have a budget and property committee meeting at 5:30 p.m. at the SAU, and followed by a school board meeting at 7 p.m. Anything else for that week? Yes?
Communications meeting on the 22nd. We're going to need at least 2 in January, considering the forum. So we could pencil one in on the 22nd, if that works for everybody.
At 6 p.m.?
And
Tom?
then, if you're doing that at 6, then a facilities meeting at 7? Or do you want to flip it?
Unless there was a SAC, there was no SAC meeting scheduled, but I don't know if we're going bi-monthly because I missed the last meeting. It was,
They were leaning in that direction, though, but they wanted to meet this week for budget.
okay. So, yeah, let's schedule the double and
Yeah,
see
we'll
what they say.
Yeah, what they
Okay.
say tomorrow night. I mean, Thursday.
So facilities on the 22nd at 7? Okay. And then on January 27th, the policy committee is scheduled to meet at 6 p.m. And that is it for that week, unless there's something else. Okay. I don't believe there are any outstanding board requests. Is that correct? Okay, good. Next, we had in your packet a justification for a special educator. We made a decision last year based on caseloads that we would have a special educator work across Dublin Consolidated School and Hancock Elementary. And so the staff member spends first part of the day at one school and then travels to the other school. Caseloads have increased in both schools to the point where that is no longer working because of our need to cover the hours and instruction and services outlined in students' IEPs. So we have brought forward a justification to add a special educator, and then the special educator who's now across 2 schools will go to just Dublin, and the new special educator that we hire will go to Hancock. And Deb Riley is here and can answer any questions that you have about this. And you can correct anything if I misspoke in any way.
No, I was just going to add that the justification is a Google Doc, so it's vertical, so you shouldn't have to turn your computer sideways to read it. So, any questions? I don't think Ann misspoke. It's a need for to maintain compliance for IEPs. It's pretty important. So that's where we are.
Okay, any questions?
So we do have remaining funds within our salary lines, given some unfilled positions. So we do have funds to cover this. Yes, we don't intend to add funds to next year's budget at this point. We would work within what we have proposed.
Okay, so it is required that we provide services that are needed to cover the IEPs and special ed areas. So, pardon me?
Yes, we usually vote on positions.
I move we accept the justification for a special education teacher for Hancock.
Okay, we have a second?
Cat, yes. Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to provide you with an update around the CT renovation project. And Jen, do you want to do you mind coming to the table just in case? Because if you have any questions, she will be ready. Last year, we brought forward, or last year, Conval was up on the list for being eligible for funds for renovation projects. We had a community forum and solicited feedback from the community, and we heard pretty loud and clear that wasn't quite the right time or the right cost at that time. So the decision was made not to move forward with the warrant article last year. This year, we have gone back to that application, and we are in the process of updating it. We are working with LaValle Brenzinger, our architects, to do some new revised conceptual drawings that has us staying within the current footprint of the CTE and focus just on the CTE. And we're going to have that application in by the deadline of January 1st with the hopes that we're holding our spot. There are some unknowns from the state about whether or not anything will come of it, but there's a possibility, so we don't want to lose that opportunity. But we'll be getting our application in and then spending next 2026 really refining those plans. And Jim, did you want to add anything? Okay. Do you want to add anything, Jen, or does anybody have any questions?
Jim?
I'd just like to make it clear that there is no plan at this point, right? That even what LaValle and Brenzinger is putting forward is just a placeholder to keep us in line, just to clarify this, that we're not withholding, a plan from the public or anything. There isn't one. We have a placeholder, and we have from now going into next year to kind of round things out and get it where we need.
And we are not committed to anything until the state actually decides if there's funding, which I guess is the difference in that at this point in time, that would have to go to the legislature, that's my understanding, for the funding to be approved. And once the funding is approved, then we would need to go forward with future plans. So
I would just clarify, I wouldn't say that we don't have a plan. I mean, we're submitting an application that includes maintaining the current program that we have, as well as adding health sciences, and then renovating the idea would be renovating current space, CTE space, to modernize those learning spaces and environments. But we are not committed to anything, and additional details will be provided as we move forward. Is that?
Yeah, if by plan you mean concept, yes, right, but.
Or application.
Yeah.
That's
But
what's
we
in our,
don't
that's
have-
what's in our application.
Right, we don't have, we have a set of goals that we want to meet through this, but as far as having something that we could actually price out and present a set of drawings to the public, we don't have that at this point in the game. And that's something that we would develop over the next year.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the major difference is that, as there was stipulated, that it's in the current footprint. So the plan that we had looked at in the past that made quite a few additions and changes in areas is not the part that's going forward. So it's in the current footprint. So, okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you. All right, budget. Okay.
Sure. I have a couple of slides just to run through. You had in your packet all the budget numbers. I handed out an update tonight. None of the numbers changed in that. It was just a format change that includes all the numbers that hopefully shows a little more clearly the exact same numbers that you have. So nothing has changed since what you had in your packet. The budget items to note, the critical shortage stipends that were voted at the last meeting have been added. All the justifications approved by the board have been added. And the open positions we have budgeted now as single plans, not family plans. If all those fill, there is some risk, but we have the health trust, which has more than enough in it to cover that if that should happen. If all those positions, it would be wonderful if they all were filled, but hopefully they're all single. The operating budget being proposed is $63,100,834. This is an $857,387 increase, which is a 1.38% increase. 1.38. That's a good number. Included in this is the new transportation contract, which adds about $220,000. Also included in this budget are capital items, which haven't been included before. And this one is the Greenfield Elementary School and the Hancock Elementary School boilers and the PES roof for a total of $668,000. It also includes the second year of the CVA contract. Last year when this contract was voted in, the estimated increase for the year that we're looking at was $806,379, which was voted in last year. So that is all included in the operating budget at the 1.38%. Budget and Property has reviewed and made some recommendations. They are recommending warrant articles to put funds into trust funds, $975,000. This would be $925,000 to the Building Capital Reserve Fund, $25,000 to the Equipment Trust, and $25,000 to the Energy Trust. They are recommending using a number of $750,000 as an estimate of what will be available from fund balance to offset taxes next year. This is not a commitment that happens now. This really happens then. Looking at the numbers where we're at now and where we think the fund balance will be, this seems like a reasonable amount to put in. They're also recommending that the $666,228 in returned attorney's fees get returned to offset taxes. That would be treated exactly the same as the $750,000. It basically becomes part of the fund balance and can be returned. So tonight, what you need to do is approve what goes to public hearing at the next meeting, and then you vote on everything after that. So if you approve what you've been presented and what is there, you're approving a budget of $63,100,834. You're approving the $975 in trust fund warrant articles, $925 to the building fund and $25 to both the equipment expendable trust fund and the energy. Approving putting on the presentation the $750, as well as putting on the presentation the attorney's fees of $666,228.
I move to accept the budget as Neil's presented.
And we'll take these sections one at a time, so. First of all, the operating budget, so
I move to approve the proposed operating budget of $63,100,834.
okay. Jim, did you want to? No, okay. Questions?
I just want to be clear that you're approving to take it to public hearing. It's not approved. It can't be approved until after public
Yep.
hearing.
Again, for board members that haven't been through the process, we will have a public hearing next month. Then in February, we have the deliberative session where it will go before the people. And then in March, the final vote on it, so. Okay, yes.
I'd like to make a comment so everyone understands. We're approving the gross budget, which includes the operational budget, items that we can control, as well as what Neil is, I think it's a good description of Neil's calling self-funded operational expenses, all the Title I, Title II programs, federal funding. So we're actually approving not a budget of $63 million, but $60 million, $60730,834 is the operational budget. That represents a 1.43% increase over last year. If you look at inflation, we don't have the November numbers yet. They'll come out 2 days, but it's a hell of a job.
Okay. All right, if there are no questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Approval of the trust funds. Yeah.
So there's actually 4. So,
Well,
right, not 3. Even though
we can do them as a group, but if there are questions, then we can split them apart.
So there are actually 2 building funds. We split them into 2 warrants.
Okay. You want to make a motion?
So I move to approve funding of the trust funds in the amount of $975,000 with warrants of $500,000 to the Building Capital Reserve Fund, $25,000 to the Equipment Expendable Trust Fund, $25,000 to the Energy Expendable Trust Fund, and $425,000 to the Building Capital Reserve Fund.
Jim?
And those are not quite the priority, because we've talked about in budget properties, the Energy Expendable Fund would be the second priority. It'd be $500 for building, energy, equipment, and then the remaining balance of the building capital.
Okay. And again, we split the 925 up because we have to see what what there is available, as well as if we do it that way, if the first number is available but not the total number, then we at least get that first number. That's why it's split into 2 parts. So, okay. Any other questions? Yes. Okay. Janine?
What was the thinking behind not allocating any money to the other trust funds? Was it that you feel like they were at their set point, so we didn't need to put any money in those?
We think they're sufficiently funded.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The unreserved fund balance, again, will, is an estimate, so do we need to act on that at this point in time? No. Okay, because that, again, will be determined by how the year goes forward. Janine?
So we usually set that at 500, don't we?
Yes, we do,
Why is it at 750?
because we think it's the right thing to do, given there's a lot of reasons for that.
What are they?
Neil has done an estimate. Well, first of all, Neil's got another chart he can show you, probably a better chart to show you that. The next one, you got a couple charts later. You don't have it on here? Okay. Let me see if I can explain it. If you look at the money that goes into the pot, we call it a pot at the end of the year, we've got retained funds. We retained $1.2 million last year. We have the $666,000 worth of legal fees. That's $1.8 million. In addition to that, we'd have any kind of excess from operations, and that could be anything from zero to, like last year was $3.5 million. Coming out of the pot, the priority is established by the voters, and the trust fund warrant articles will come first. $975,000 for the trust funds. Anything beyond that, we can't determine until we know how much is left over from this fiscal year 26. And at that point, we'll have to make a decision as a board on how much to retain and how much to return.
So that's just the 7, I guess I was
Let me just finish. So if you took the money we know we're going to have to return is $1,879,000, and the amount we know if the trust fund warrant article is approved, we have to give out is only $975,000. So $750,000 is a piece of cake. We could have gone higher, but we decided not to.
I guess
We have a different situation this year, Janine. We have the $666,000 worth of legal fees we didn't have in the pot last year.
I know, and those are what I'm concerned about. You know, I was hoping
They're all
that
going back.
Pardon?
They're all going back.
Yes, I know. But I want to know, like, we didn't make that decision.
You did make the decision, but the only thing we have to commit to right now is the $975,000. Excuse me, the $975,000 is if the voters approve it, and the $750,000 that we show on the spreadsheet for. Let me finish. The $750,000 we show on the spreadsheet in the budget. The estimated revenues are shown to the voters.
Jim?
Yeah, so the bottom line is that the projections that we have right now show that we should probably still be able to take our policy 2.5% of the budget in retained funds and still be able to give out back well more than $750,000, but we're conservatively putting $750,000 in there as a number to give back. So.
I guess I can see that. I understand that. But my question is, at least the return of the attorney's fees. My question is, like, usually we say 500, and I understand that you're saying, well, we think we're going to have a lot more than that, 750. I guess I'm wondering why, and this is especially about the attorney's fees, when we have expenses in the district, why we always turn around and we don't use some of this money to address some of the need in the district. I'd like to have a discussion about using some of those funds to take care of some of our needs in the district.
I think the other thing is you have to look at comparison also year to year. And the, one of the reasons that, a year ago, the amount that was, it was in excess of $4 million that was given back. And so when you have a large chunk like that that's given back, there's a tendency to end up with your budget numbers going up and down. So that's, we needed to make sure that, a decent amount was contained in that. Curtis and then Jim.
I was just going to add that if we weren't to give that back or to declare that now, we would risk an even greater spike in the assessment as a result of this.
Jim.
Yeah, and the money isn't just ours to use. It would go into the unreserved fund balance, which can only be used for unexpected and emergency kind of things. So it's not just like we can treat it as budget money and spend it willy-nilly. And remember, the taxpayers gave us that money to pay our legal fees. We did. We used that money wisely. But that money has now been returned to us. And they gave it to us for a purpose. That's been done. We need to give it back to them now at this point.
Jim.
Another way of saying this is unless we make a decision to spend that money this year, it goes back in the pot anyway. So this is just a financial accounting way of saying it. So we've already talked, we're not going to spend that money this year. It's back in the pot next year. And the way it gets returned to the voters is this $666,000 reduces the amount they'd have to be assessed in their taxes a year from now. We can't do anything with this year's. This wouldn't, if we agreed to spend that money, return it. We couldn't return it this year because those numbers are already in. We have to return next year. So it's just, this is more of a financial statement than it is a. And we have a budget. We went through a 3-month process to determine how much we want to spend next year. So unless we want to just decide we're going to spend the money on something else we haven't already talked about, then it's more of a financial discussion than it is a how we're going to spend the money discussion.
Okay. Can I have a motion on the return of the lawyer fees?
Move to approve returning the attorney's fees in the amount of $666,228 to offset tax assessments.
We have okay. Bill? Bill seconded. Okay. Anything further on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Janine? And
I just want to make clear that when we say reduce taxes, that would be December, taxes due in December 26th, not this December.
okay. I think that covers budget. So, all right, Janine, you have the policies?
The first one up, I think, is ACAC. Is that the first one on the? Oh, okay. AC-R2. This is actually a procedure addition. It's an appendix. It requires annual updating of information, and the update reflects changes in the contact information. The contact in the primary is now Dr. Stevenson. And a link update as well as the priority designation. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one is ACAC, Title IX, Prohibition of Sex Discrimination and Sex-Based Harassment. It's the policy and the grievance procedure. AC-E is now AC-R2. Minor revisions made in this policy. Did I get that confused? Formatting updates were also made in regard to bulleting and capitalization. Yeah, I'm just going to describe them first, okay, and then we'll go through and vote on them. JCA is a change of class or school assignment. Two former policies were combined to reflect legislative requirements, new legislative requirements. A change within a school district is allowed. The only reason that the superintendent would not approve it is if the capacity was not there. And the out-of-district dependent on manifest educational hardship, which was a separate policy, is now part of JCA, although the same rules apply for approval. And they also added a definition of approved school for those out-of-district placements. JICD is student behavior, conduct, discipline, and due process. And this was a policy that we also had, that it was spread over 3 different policies. And it's combined with some language improvements. And if it's adopted, we will rescind JIA and JCE. So
You want to make a motion to accept?
Go ahead, I'll second.
I gotta turn that on. Can I do them all at once?
No,
One at a time.
one at a
Okay.
time.
I make a motion to accept policy ACR2, non-discrimination, equal opportunity employment, and anti-discrimination plan.
a second, Janine.
Okay, any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, next one.
Make a motion to accept policy ACAC, Title IX, prohibition of sex discrimination and sex-based harassment.
Second, Janine.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Make a motion to accept policy JICD, student behavior, conduct, discipline, and due process.
Second.
No. Any? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I make a motion to rescind policies JIA and JIC.
JCE.
It says JIC on here.
Well, we want to accept the JCA first, correct?
No. We just accepted JICD.
Yeah, no, yeah, the 2
It's
rescindents
this
are
one.
with JICD. Don't we have to put that on the, we have to put that on the agenda though, don't we?
It is.
Oh, okay. Looking at my notes.
Yeah.
JC.
JIA and JIC. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, second.
Okay. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Move to accept policy JCA, change of class or school assignment on the basis of best interest or manifest educational hardship.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
And last but not least, I move to rescind policies JCB and JEC. You getting bored of this over here? You're fine, don't worry.
Okay, any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving down to the CTE Regional Agreement.
So at our last meeting, I shared that during the 2025 legislative session, there were amendments to RSA 188, which affected CTE. And we're now required to develop what's referred to as a CTE access program. So one of how this will impact our CTE. So if we have a student who attends a program at another school and they decide that they want to stay and do the rest of their day there, and they will be able to do it. So open enrollment has already been decided for us related to CTE. Just as if students came to any of our programs here at Conval and they wanted to enroll at Conval, if we had the capacity to have them, that would happen. And the sending district would pay us 80% of their per pupil cost. Just as we would pay 80% of our per pupil costs if we had a student go to another high school. We also would need to provide transportation. So we updated our regional agreement to reflect these changes, and the agreement needs to be signed and in place by January 1st. So you had copies of the agreement, both a clean copy and the redlined version. At our last meeting, Jim Kingston pointed out an area of the agreement which was confusing. It was actually taken directly from the law, but I have it up on the screen. And
Suffice it to say that lawyers can't do math in words.
I don't know if it's the lawyers, it's the legislatures. No, shouldn't be saying that. Okay. I'm not as concerned about this one. It's the open enrollment, it's the next part that's more concerning. The way it was. Oh, okay. Well, now I'm not connected anymore. It's this other one. Adam just postponed it.
All right, let's skip down to expenses and encumbrances.
You have the information in your packet that you had. You'll notice that the budget transfers have been done that were voted. Comparing to where we are now compared to last year, we are really in line with where we were at the end of November. There are a couple of lines. Revenue is right where we expect it to be. And trust funds, we have reimbursements going out this week, so most of the outstanding items we will be reimbursed for, and those will be complete.
Okay. Can I have a motion to accept the expense and encumbrances?
I move we approve the expense and the encumbrance report and all encumbrances included therein.
Okay, any questions?
So there are no line items that will need transfers at this point?
Not right now. Yep.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Okay, so now you can see the section that we made minor revision, really was just the adding of a comma. So you can see how that would be confusing without the comma. Divided by 5 times as opposed to divided by 5 times the number of credits. So we added the comma and an example to clarify that. So that's the only change that we've made since the last time. But we need for you to vote to approve the amended agreement so that Mike, as chair, can sign that agreement.
Can I have a motion to do that?
Move to accept the amended CTE agreement.
I second with a pretty well done math.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you. Open enrollment.
Okay, so there's been, just to recap, there's been a lot about open enrollment with the legislature, but it's the recent Supreme Court case that has really kind of turned things upside down for us. And that decision, there was one open enrollment school in New Hampshire, and some students from a nearby district decided to go there. The district sent a bill to the district of the students who came, and that district thought, as we all did, if we hadn't decided to become an open enrollment, we did not have to pay tuition for students who chose to go to an open enrollment. And the Supreme Court found that we do. So it has put us in a place where we are working within a very tight window to address this. If we do nothing, then if any districts around us vote to become an open enrollment district, and if any of our students decide to go to one of those schools, we will need to let them go to that school, and we will need to pay them 80% of our average per pupil cost. The only way to kind of control that risk right now is to vote or to move forward with becoming an open enrollment district. The way you do that is we would develop a resolution that we would bring forward to our deliberative session and have a public hearing on it, and ultimately would end up on our ballot, and our citizens would need to vote on that. The content of that resolution would include the percent of students that we would accept, as well as the percent of students we would allow to leave and go to an open enrollment district. The deadline for warrants is January 26th. So again, this is a very compressed timeline. Before we get into what administration is bringing forward with the recommendation, I just wanted to clarify again that if our students leave, we pay 80% of our average per pupil cost. And then if the student receives special education services and there are any costs associated with that, we will be billed for those costs. So that will be in addition to the 80%. I presented this last night. This is a new slide. This just shows we will still be receiving adequacy for students. So if a student left, the 80% of our tuition, our 80% of our average per pupil cost will be offset by the adequacy that we receive for that student. So this just shows in the first bar, the blue bar is that's what we get for base adequacy for students. That's $4,351. If a student receives special education, we get an additional $2,441. No, sorry, that's if they qualify for free or reduced lunch. If they receive special education, they've been identified as somebody who receives special education services, we get an additional $2,229. And if it's an English language learner student, then we get an additional $849. So that would still come in, but that we could use to offset. So I think understanding the financial risk is really important right now. So if we do nothing, then that risk is really unknown. If we can choose to set our outgoing students at 0%. And if we do that, then we've minimized our risks related to open enrollment just to students who elect open enrollment through CTE. If we set it at 0.1%, that would be 2 students. And so the cost of that would be $42,284. And I just kind of showed you, if we set it at 0.25, that would be 4 students, and the associated cost. 0.5 would be 9 students, 1% would be 18 students. In this table, just to kind of give you an idea, if we were to if we allowed 2 students to leave, I just show you the cost here, and then if we took in, say, 2 students from Hillsborough, I just wanted you to get a sense. In this area, we have the highest per pupil average cost. So if 2 students left and 2 students came in, it would not be an even exchange. So does anybody have questions about that, or keep going?
Do people have questions on the procedure before we get on to the recommendation? Jim?
Can you go back a chart or two to the risk?
Oh.
I just had what I call brain fart. Could we set up a trust fund to cover dedicated to open enrollment trust fund? Cover risk on that?
The new legislation this year was that we have to have a line in our budget for open enrollment tuition and tuition that we would receive. And we have a line item with $1 in it because you're required to have some money in the line in order for it to be operational.
But you could have a dollar amount in a line item, and you could have a trust fund to cover any over or under. Just thought, we're in a different ballgame now.
Yeah, it would. We would have to see which trust fund that would apply for.
Maybe we should ask Dean, we set up a separate trust fund to cover.
Oh, we'd have to. You're saying set up a separate one just for that.
Exactly. Should we ask Dean that question? We might want to consider that we have time to do it. Get in this warrant article, we need to do that.
Well, just as. Oh, sorry, Curtis.
I would support doing that. I think it's a good idea. In a lot of schools that are set up with area agreements have tuition trust funds to manage volatility between years and class sizes. This is, no different. I think we'd be wise to do it.
And it would make it probably even more important because right now, again, you see that there's some limitations, but the plan that was put forth last year for open enrollment did not allow you to limit anyone coming or going. And so, again, the legislature is studying about putting that back forward. So the only way you could have any control over students coming in would be if there was capacity. Otherwise, students could come and go as wanted.
So that just reinforces the importance of the message that Curtis brought to the State Ed Department about the need to consider the impact of open enrollment that is being debated and the legislation that they're passing. The other thought or question I have is, if that Supreme Court case ruled that the district was required to pay for students who opted to go to a different school, regardless of whether they had an open enrollment policy, it seems like we don't limit our exposure to zero if we say that's the number of students we have outgoing. If a student chooses to go to another school which has open enrollment, it sounds like you still get billed, if I'm understanding what that Supreme Court decision is.
Now, as it was explained to us, the only way to prevent what you just described is to become an open enrollment school and place limitations. Because if you don't, then you're subject to just what you said.
And that's why the very first slide says, if we do nothing, then we open ourselves up to that.
Just
The
to point
Supreme-
out the absurdity of it, so if we don't have a policy where we say our students are not allowed to go out of our school, or if we don't have an open enrollment policy, then they are allowed to leave.
Yes.
But if we have an open enrollment policy, and we say the open enrollment is 0, then they can't leave. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Janine.
So I listened to the webinar that NHSBA did, and Baird Christina, this was by Reaching Higher New Hampshire, and Baird Christina was on that, but he said it was a very bad idea to put 0, because then if you had a parent or a family in the district who did want to leave the school district and go to another school, you were opening yourself to a lawsuit, simply because of the way the law is. So it is directly to that contradiction. So he recommended that you come up with some small percentage.
Well, we talked to our attorney today, and he said that this is the way that the law is set up, so it would be difficult to say that we're doing something illegal if this is what the law states. And the other thing is that we've already heard from a number of districts that they're all setting them to 0. So that's why it's even more important to do something, because if no one is allowing their students to come into our district and we don't do anything and a number of students leave, then that's what sets up the financial problem. There are still 2 laws that allow students to leave or to go to a different setting. One is hardship, and the other is benefit. So it's not like, that's the other thing the attorney said is, if someone came to us and said, it's a hardship, we need to send our students someplace else, and gave a reasonable hardship, then we would have to allow that to happen. So it's not like setting 0 gives people no chance whatsoever to have their student in a different facility. Jim?
What are we going to be voting on tonight?
We're looking at voting on a recommendation that what we're going to do for open enrollment. Our problem is that all of this has to be on a warrant article by January 26th, so we don't have a lot of time.
My point was we don't vote on the actual warrant articles until sometime in January, right? So what are we really voting on tonight to move in that direction, right?
Yes.
I would recommend that we also consider setting up a trust, open enrollment tuition trust fund, warrant article, with direct funding, $1. So that no matter what happens, we have $1 in a trust fund. My other question, and for Neil and others, is if, once we set that up and fund it, it gets approved, we fund it for $1 with our own money, not substitute voter approval, can we use retained funds?
To fund a trust?
Yes.
No. You can only fund a trust with voter-approved funds.
That's not true. Because when we set up the Energy Trust Fund, we set up what was the other one we set up? There is direct funding, it's an option. But that's also a warrant article.
It requires a warrant article.
Yeah, I didn't let you finish. I thought you were going to say fund balance. Voter approval is key. Yes, you're right. Gotcha. Okay. I think we ought to consider that. If we do propose warrant article, I think we ought to marry it with a.
Okay. Jim?
Yeah. So, like I said in the Education Committee meeting last night, we're either for open enrollment or we're not. And we can become an open enrollment school and still be against open enrollment, but only if we go 0-0 with our percentages. Otherwise, you're saying, I want to take advantage of the situation, but not be at risk. And I have a moral opposition to that, right? That's hypocrisy. To be we want to be on the receiving end of students coming in, but we don't want anybody to be able to leave. I have a problem with that. So I think setting those percentages to 0-0, still living within the law, and protecting ourselves from others around us, still setting ourselves up as an open enrollment, setting our limitations, but making it 0-0 so we're protected, is a perfectly acceptable thing given the craziness of this, this law and this Supreme Court decision. But to make it a one-way street, I'm opposed to that.
I think, well,
Can I
let's
Can I
get.
finish
Yeah, let's get to
presenting
the next
the
part.
proposal?
Yep.
'Cause
Go
I
ahead.
don't. So I'm going to go ahead and read it. So when Dean was here, one of the first question, when he gave us a series of questions to think about as we approach this, and the first question was, which of our schools' programs would potentially benefit from open enrollment? And the conversation was, we do have capacity in all of our schools, so potentially all of our schools could benefit from it. But there is a lot to think about with open enrollment. So we made the choice to focus on one program, and that's the German program at the high school. And so we wrote it as, shall the Kentucky Valley School District vote to designate the German program at Conval Regional High School an open enrollment program pursuant to New Hampshire RSAD with an enrollment limitation continuing to allow all 100% of its eligible resident students to attend Conval Regional High School and to allow admitted non-resident students to make up no more than 2% of the total enrollment within the Kentucky Valley School District, and further to limit the number of its resident students who may attend open enrollment schools located outside of the district to 0%. We would have considered something other than 0 if we were hearing from our neighboring districts that they were considering something besides 0, but the districts that we have heard from are setting 0. So if we identify anything other than 0 for outgoing, we could find ourselves in a position where we are the only district who did something other than 0, so that we've only created a pathway for students to leave and no ability to offset the cost of students leaving by having students come in. But from an educational standpoint, we focused on the German program because it is an award-winning program. people that were at Ed Committee. It's a really incredible program. There are only a handful of German programs within the state. None of our neighboring districts offer it. So it really is an incredible opportunity if students could access it. And then why so narrow right now? It's because of how many unknowns there are and the compressed timeline. And if we went forward, this would, and again, legislature, it could all be different tomorrow, but if this went forward, it buys us time to also think about what are all the processes and procedures that we need to get into place to deal with open enrollment, because it's coming.
And last night, we did discuss several things. Again, you still have the CTE open enrollment situation, so we could be paying for some of that, and by having a small amount of students that are possible coming in, that would cover us for that situation. The legislature, as I said, is looking at open enrollment with no limitations. So if that comes down, having a small program that's under open enrollment would allow us to sort of get everything set in case that law did pass, which now they're saying if everybody goes to zero, that there's even a better chance probably the legislature's going to pass it, because that's not what their intent was. So, and if we're going to be in open enrollment, then we have to start looking at what can we have that would convince people to come here for open enrollment rather than leaving. And right now we have this incredible German program that's in the high school that no one else has, that would be another thing that would attract people to come to Conval. So I think having that small program has a lot of benefits to it, and really no lack of or no problems that are associated with it. Tom.
I agree with everything you're saying, Mike, and also Ann. I'm just trying to figure out the practicality of this. If I was a student in another district and I wanted to come to Conval for German, how would that work? How would I come just for one?
Nope, you would come for the whole, you would become the Conval student.
So when we say we're only opening it up for German, that's the conduit?
Yeah,
right.
That's it.
Gotcha.
You'll come as a student, but the expectation that you're going to be taking German.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Jim.
You stated there's a risk if other districts around us don't say zero, right?
If they all do zero, that's the risk.
Zero.
If they all do zero and we don't, then we've created a situation where none of their students can come here, but our students can leave.
Because I was thinking in terms of the timing. I mean, the last day to post warrant articles is Monday, January 26th. Or deliberative session will be after that. So if we find out somebody has posted a warrant articles that not good for us, we could handle it in a deliberative session with a change to any. If we have some kind of warrant on our agenda, we could also have somebody, Mr. Dunning or anybody, propose an amendment that makes on the floor amendment to protect ourselves. If we find something else between now and then, just think it out loud. All right.
The other thing to mention is that this would go into effect July 1st. So the other thing that allows us to do, as you can see up there, is it would allow us to set up policies that would handle the application for open enrollment, it would allow us to set up the financial process that we would need to handle open enrollment. So we would have time to handle that rather than waiting to see if the state's going to do something and having to react again. Yes.
For me, I think that's a really important point, is that if we do that, that gives us the opportunity to figure it out in a little bit of calmness instead of like reacting to, okay, now it's a reality and now we don't get to like try anything out and figure out policy and have those those deeper conversations about it, because then we're going to have to do it, right? And if it doesn't pass, then, well, okay, we've got something in place. But if it does, then we're, I think, more prepared for it. So.
Yep. Yes. One.
I have a little concern about doing this with our Adjourn program, because students are already required to only take 2 language studies, I think, for a graduate, or to graduate. So one concern I would have is if I'm a parent from another district and I really want to take control of take advantage of the public school system, I'm going to say I'm sending my kid to Conval for the German program and have them take like 1 or 2 classes, but just to go to Conval and take advantage of that kind of system.
Are you saying, but they wouldn't then complete the German program?
Yeah, nothing in there says that they have to complete the German program.
We have the ability, once approved, our policy committee would meet and we could create policy and criteria that would address something like that. So we could put in that if you came and took 1 course of German and that was it, say, that we could say that they could no longer come.
To the highest level of German.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes to open enrollment, would the students coming to Conval, would they be offered all the opportunities that students at Conval were? Because in the German, specifically thinking for the German class specifically, we have a exchange program with a school in Austria. That just seems like that'd be a whole lot more hoops to jump through if someone from another school were coming to Conval for the German program and then going on an exchange to Austria.
They would be our students. They would they would apply and be accepted, and they'd be considered Conval students at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Greg.
Just because it's such an absurd conversation that we're having, does it have to be an academic program? I'm just throwing it out there. Does it have to be an academic program? I'm not suggesting it shouldn't be for this, but does it have to be an academic program? Could some school district decide, I've got a great soccer team, I'm going to let all these soccer kids come and play soccer?
The statute says it has to be a school district, a school, or a program. So it's got to be one of those 3 things.
It's a good. Yeah. I think we'd have to ask legal to confirm that. But you're bringing up an issue that has been brought up with other people around open enrollment, that they may be going to schools saying they're going for one reason, but some schools are going to end up with some very good athletic teams.
Yes. Okay, yes.
This is kind of just a clarification, but what do we benefit, or what extent to which do we benefit from taking students in from other schools? It's kind of just a simple question.
Well,
Do we
there's some
do we directly
educational.
get that though? Isn't that just paying for the students' tuition? It's not directly going to us, is it?
Well, it would come into the district. And the reality is we would be creating, like, so right now an average class, we've got some classes with 15 kids in it in German, right? Especially the upper level courses. So there's advantages to bringing in kids because I think it will provide for a richer environment in some of the smaller classes. But we won't be adding a teacher, right? We're identifying capacity in a classroom that we already have. So we're going to get tuition, and I think this is one of the issues with open enrollment, right? We could add one student to a class, and we could get 42,000, or no, it won't be 42, but somewhere between maybe 15 and 20. But we're not going to. Our costs are going to be pretty minimal because we already have space in the classroom. So there may be some costs associated with books or online subscriptions. But
The other thing that this does is it allows us some time to actually look at open enrollment within the district. The program that Dean showed you, where you'll have to look at, do you want to identify some of the elementary schools? Do you want to identify the high school as a whole? What do you want to identify as far as open enrollment is concerned? So it also gives you time to study those types of issues. Carl?
Do you know if you're able to change your mind after a year? If they were no longer open enrollment?
Yep. This would go for a year. So if it was voted in at the March meeting, it would go into effect July 1st, and then you could, again, have another warrant the next year to change whatever you wanted to within the program. If you wanted to change the limits, or if you wanted to add schools or whatever, you would have to go through the same procedure.
But if it's voted in, it's in place until you have a new warrant article changing it.
It's not in for a year.
No, but
It's in
it can
until
be,
it's
what I'm
changed.
saying, he asked, does it
And
have
this-
to?
And this is why you need more time, because the other thing is, even if you changed it a year later, if you accepted a student during that year, they have the right to remain at that. Even if you choose that this school is no longer an open enrollment school, any students we took in have the ability to, matriculate through that to the highest grade in that school.
Janine?
So after that first year that you accept a student into the district as one of your own students, and the other district has to pay the 80%. After that year, that student stays, do they just become part of our enrollment, or does that other district continue to pay that 80% every year?
No, if they move to our district, they wouldn't, but otherwise they would pay it every year.
I just, again, I've heard this entire board, almost without exception, say you're morally opposed to open enrollment for a lot of good reasons. But I guess that moral opposition only lasts until there's a financial benefit to us. I'm sorry to put it that way, but that's what I'm seeing. We can develop these policies and procedures without having open enrollment in place. We've got a year. We could develop these policies and procedures for this particular method of open enrollment and find the legislature pulls all the rug out from under you and has an entire different set of policies and procedures that you're going to need next year, even if you do say you're practicing for this year. So do it. Protect yourselves. Pass this warrant article, but pass it with a 0% in, 0% out.
Sarah?
Yes, but we do have this opportunity, and our goal, right, is the betterment of our students, right? And that is the goal. If we have this nice opportunity that we can offer to surrounding students, why wouldn't we offer it? A little bit. I don't know when I've said I'm morally opposed to
Yeah.
offering other students. I certainly haven't. Open enrollment. It's more than just, we already do this with CTE and manifest hardship and things like this. There are already things that we do when it's in the best interest of the child. We have a award-winning program available for people. If we had, just as like we have CTE programs that other people don't have, that kids are coming here to go to. It just,
So if there were, so.
when did we all go around the room and say,
go-
I'm
All right,
morally
let's,
opposed to this?
let's,
turn it on its
if
head.
you,
I really want
if
to.
you have something to say, let's get, please raise your hand so that everyone has an opportunity. Kat?
I am not morally opposed to it. I am opposed to state-mandated, statewide open enrollment. And that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is the potential for opportunities for kids to maybe take part in a program that offers a little bit outside of New Hampshire. And so I think that opportunity is, we should offer that opportunity if we can. And so I don't want us to lose students, but at the same time, if there's an opportunity for a kid to take automotive over in Messinic, and we don't offer that, which we don't, then they should. And so why is that any different than a person who wants to become bilingual or trilingual or multilingual having the opportunity to come here? So I'm not opposed to open enrollment. I'm opposed to the state telling us we have to do it for all of our students. That's what I'm opposed to.
Marcus?
Personally, I'd say I'm pretty opposed to open enrollment because with like programs that we've already mentioned or laws that we've already mentioned, CTE, students don't come to our school like the entire schedule. They don't schedule the entire day with us. With other laws, the other schools or us aren't paying for tuition for them. But with this law, if we take in another student, basically without the other school's consent, we are making them pay 80% of this student's tuition to go to us, so they can basically like enjoy a German program, say if they are saying they're going to a German program, but they're probably not just going to the German program.
Janine?
I think the concern is not that we're offering students more opportunities, but the concern is that where the students are coming from, because we're pitting one school district against another, and that we can talk about students being able to take advantage of programs, but that requires parents, families with resources that can take their children into another district, drive their kids to that other program. And there are a significant number of students who would not be able to do that. And at the same time, it's bankrupting those districts that have to keep on providing those programs. So I think the concern is that the students are going to be attracted to those schools that already have a good amount of resources and can provide those extras. And the schools that are already struggling are going to lose what they have. And that my concern is that how does that district or that town keep on providing that free and appropriate public education when all of its resources are drained away? So I I do not believe I'm not saying that I could guess what the thinking is behind this proposal, because I do not believe that parents asked for this. I've never heard a parent ask for open enrollment. We already have the ability, in the first place, there's the FAs. In the second place, we already transferred students from school to school. We transfer, if we actually have a family that wants to send their kid here from out of district, we accepted them. We don't need this legislation to do that, but at least it kept the number down so that we're not bankrupting districts. So I am morally opposed to open enrollment. I don't believe it's for the betterment of students. I believe it's for the destruction of the public school system.
Sarah.
I agree to an extent, and I think Conval is in a good spot to be one of those safer schools in this situation. But the other schools are going to lean into it because they're going to try and have to save themselves. Right.
Yeah. Greg.
So I'm going to agree with everyone that there's pluses and minuses to everything. However, my big concern with open enrollment is mostly what Janine just said. It's those who have get more, and those who have not get less. And that is my fundamental problem. Because yes, we have a fantastic German program, and I would love more students to be able to come take advantage of it. But who are those students going to be there to take advantage of it? It's going to be the upper cohort who have the financial resources to truck their kids in to do that. It's not going to be some poor single mom working 14 jobs to make ends meet. That's just not realistic. And for that reason, I think we should all be supporting Jim's thought. Yes, we need to do something so that we're an open enrollment school. But to say we're taking them and not taking them, I think is, I hate to say hypocritical, but I don't have a better word for it. But the bigger issue is I am fundamentally opposed to letting the haves have more and the have-nots have less.
All right, we could go on with this all night. So I'm not, we would have to check back with legal, because if you set both at 0, then really you're not an open enrollment school. Yes.
Did we get any clarification on our ability to amend the scope of our open enrolledness after it's passed and adopted and before it's implemented? So what is our ability within policy to revise down the...
Your limits have to be set within the...
So they're stuck. I don't...
I mean, you can affect things like after it's accepted, you can set application process that determines, what you're going to not. Jim.
So that was a question that I had last night at the Education Committee meeting was, what has to be in the warrant article or what should be in the warrant article. Now, if we want to open up the German program and make it 2%, but then in policy are able to say, oh, it's only the AP German class for seniors that score in the 75% or above on the German language test as an application, and that's acceptable and legal to do, essentially, you're not going to have some kid come and take AP German at Conval when they're a senior graduating from, have been in the school district their whole life. They're not going to give up their senior year, right? So you're essentially making it a zero while not making it a zero. Right? I could see doing something along those lines, right? I mean, again, we're gaming the system. We're gaming the system anyway. But whether it has to be in a warrant article, those limitations, or whether they can be done after the fact, that's a question that I think needs to be resolved.
Curtis?
I think it's tempting to want to solve the problem for, all by ourselves, and come up with the perfect solution to make the ultimate oppositional statement. But at the end of the day, if we say 0 out and everybody else says 0 out, that does the trick.
All right. Can I have a motion from someone, or do you wish to vote on this in the next meeting? It would have to be tonight or the next meeting because we need to get the... Greg?
Can we get an opinion from legal about the procedural part? Because if we can get a report from, if we can procedurally basically have a 2% in, 0% out, but procedurally make it essentially, as Jim said, 0% in, 0% out. I have no problem supporting something like that, but if that's not something procedurally we can do, again, I do have a problem with it.
I think it's something procedurally we can do, but I don't know if it, we're not voting right now I don't know if everybody would be supportive of that. That was certainly not the intent when we brought it forward, so, yeah.
Yep. Tom?
What would be the point to doing that anyway? If we're just going to basically make it impossible to come here, then why even bother? No, so we'd already say 0 students out. Right, so but what, our policy could be 0 students out, and we're not opening up any of our programs. I don't understand. You only can do it if you, oh, okay, I didn't understand that.
You have to have, part of the open enrollment, you have to have a program, a school,
Okay.
or the whole
Sorry.
district. Janine?
I think that the warrant article, the idea that was put forward is a good one. It's the best idea that we can come up with.
You want to make a motion to that?
Okay, I move that we accept the warrant article as written by the administration.
We have a second?
Second, Kat.
I'd prefer to vote next meeting.
So we have no second? Oh, Kat seconded. Okay.
I move to amend the warrant article to say 0% in and 0% out.
Well, we don't know,
No, we're going to vote on the amendment, and as soon as Curtis says, what do you...
we have not yet asked. Can you do 0, 0? Yes. So it would be unwise to do that without knowing. I think there are a couple more questions. We have time to consider this next week or in January 6th, and to get a few more questions asked, such as 0, 0, and I'm sure in a week we can think of a few more.
Okay, well, we have two motions. First of all, yes, Tom?
I feel like I'm going crazy, but didn't I just say 0 in, 0 out, and everyone told me that is not allowable?
No, you said, can you do it without having a program? And, yeah, you have to have a program.
So you could have a program, but you could also say 0 in.
No, we don't think you would have to set requirements, but, all right. So we're going to vote on the amendments. First of all, you have to vote on the amendment, which is the 0-0. Greg?
If we're willing to withdraw the original motion, I'm willing to withdraw the amendment.
I second that.
All right, all those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand.
We're going to wait. I'm willing to withdraw the amendment if we're willing to withdraw the original motion.
So we don't have to vote tonight? Okay, I withdraw.
We have 2 more opportunities to vote, 2 more board meetings.
Okay.
The final warrant article has to be approved
So-
at the January, let me finish, January, whatever, second board meeting is the 20th. That's the last time we could have.
If you have questions, so far we've got the 0-0 question. If you have other questions, please email them to Dr. Forrest by the end of the week so that we can check with our attorneys on those before the next meeting.
Well, the seconder has to be willing to withdraw as well.
Okay, that was Pat, right? So Pat
Drew,
agrees
who
to
made
withdraw.
motions?
And Greg was the seconder, and he agreed.
So we have no,
We do have non-public meeting minutes, but they do not need to be done tonight. I'm thinking we could do that at they've waited like 20 years for us to, so I think another month is okay.
When we do this, I just want to make sure that in January 6th to the 20th, we talk about the trust fund warrant article for tuition. I'm excited of that. I might lose sight of it, but I want you to.
all right, we'll check on that.
Nope, yep, nope. I'm actually wondering if people have questions. Okay, we have public comments. If people have questions about open enrollment, I recommend you put them in as a board request. I think it would be better for us to get the answers from legal and get them out to you so you have, because it just seems like we talked to legal today and got questions answered, but every time new questions come up. So I think if you would do that, I think that would serve us better.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn then?
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just for public comment, I wanted to end on a positive. I know Marcus and Marcus and Liam had mentioned our basketball teams earlier, referring to the boys and girls basketball team. But we have a third basketball team, our unified basketball team, who had their first game of the season tonight. So they won their game against Wilton Lineborough. So that was really exciting. And their first home game of the season is January 7th against Keene. But I wanted to report out in our third team. So it was very exciting. Thank you.
Now can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.